Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my first Genshin animation reaction and breakdown. This one was only because I had already listened to the entire section of music that plays during this animation piece as its own separate reaction. And then people were like, by all means, go watch and react and talk about the main animation. So here I am, and here's the first time I'm going to be doing this. So I'm interested. I don't know what to expect, so I guess we'll find out. Without further ado, let's go.
My mission.
Ooh. Okay. Got some pretty water effects going on here.
The original sin is the fairest. Everyone sinks.
This is
Make
looking
the
like
most of the final feast.
like a 2.5D
Because for the
animation.
sinners, the curtain
More
call
than-
has come.
Oh, there's some smudging in there. Yeah, okay, definitely. I was not sure what to expect here. We're going for a limited animation, 2.5D kind of thing. More of an illustrated thing than an actual animation, in my opinion, but doesn't mean there won't be things to talk about.
The most important part of this is what people see.
Some fun things already. Okay. I was honestly expecting it to be like a full
People
CG
don't
thing
realize
because
how
it's
much
Genshin
they
and that's what I'm
expect their
used to
eyes
seeing.
Tell them the truth. But what you see is not real. It's all a show. And every part of the show is carefully controlled.
Controlled how?
There's a lot more
Choosing the
movement
right
in this than
time,
I
the
thought
right
there would be
place,
after seeing the art style.
and the right people.
Usually with these things, they limit as much as they can, but they're actually
Whoever
doing a lot
controls
of
these
minor
three
movement here.
controls everything. But keep your eyes peeled, and you might be able to turn things to your advantage.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, they're doing their jobs. All right. No argument now.
In a nutshell, magic is what you see with your own two eyes.
I had my reservations.
Very fun. But it's not enough. Let me make something clear.
This is
You
the,
think of yourselves as
this is the
magicians,
character.
but when you're on the stage, you're
I'm sorry. So when I was reacting to the music for this, as I mentioned, I heard this theme and I'm like, why are we in a twirly mustache villain's house? This is not the person I expected to see. That completely different. All right, sorry to pause there, but let's continue.
you think of yourselves as magicians.
Now I'm just thinking of her
but
with the
when you're on the
mustache.
stage, you're first and foremost actors. Good actors hone their craft to mesmerize the whole crowd.
Oh, that was cool. That's not... Yeah, okay, that's a model. And now it's... Oh. All right.
Boring! I mean, why do I even bother? When are we going to finally see a real twist for once?
Please refrain from levity in the court.
All right, Dad.
This trial is far from over.
Ooh, okay. All right. We definitely have things to talk about here. That had way more than I expected when it came to effort after learning that it was just going to be a 2.5D. I was kind of expecting less, but this had some majorly cool stuff in it, so I'm actually really excited to go and talk about it. So let's get to the breakdown, shall we? All right, so obviously the first thing I want to talk about is actually the first shot. This is really cool, having the blur go out as it starts to evolve in this water effect here. The plunge going down there. There's so much detail in this plunge. The 2D effects, I assume this is 2D. It definitely looks like it. If not, that's some serious shading work in a 3D program. But beautiful. The blooming and everything on this water is fantastic. You can really see all the detail and all these little bubbles and everything just blooming from the edges and bursting outward and following proper physics for water, which does not get enough appreciation, even though I talk about it every single time it appears. I love water effects when they're done well, and this is a beautiful plunge. Usually you don't get this level of detail. And as I kind of mentioned during the video, with it being 2.5D and largely just being heavily illustrated images that are then manipulated in 2D space, and you kind of just play around with some pin tooling to get them to kind of move slightly. You get the hair on different layers, you can kind of manipulate it to be separate from the rest of the body. You do the same with clothing, etc. It's super common to be done, but this is just what baffled me about this entire project was the amount of effort that they put into every little layer. I was expecting it to be a lot less attentive when it came to detail, because these images being so detailed makes it that much harder to get every individual layer to act separately, and you have to be super careful about what you draw in separate layers, which you export on separate layers. It can be an absolute bear, and the fact that they did this much work, I'm kind of wondering why they didn't just do a CG project, but at the same time, if that's not the style they were going for, there's no reason to. I really like the way this looks. And to put an emphasis on my last point, shots like this are why I'm kind of confused and still can't fully tell what is in some spaces CG or 2D. This head turn here is extremely smooth. It would be like having the entire face be basically its own symbol, its own layer, and squishing it in one direction to feign a rotation. So basically taking this entire side of the head and just squishing it that way. Basically taking this line and moving it in and leaving this one largely alone on this side of the face. It's a possibility. It's hard to tell, and that's why I was so confused at first, because there are some legitimately difficult spots to tell in this project where they may have used CG. Like, that could have been a CG head. It could have just been a still image that they then decided to press in to feign a rotation, which is a common thing that they usually do in 2D TV series. It's something that's super common in 2D animated series. A lot of stuff do that. Teen Titans Go did that. I did that a lot in My Little Pony. It's kind of hard to tell depending on how good the person is, and this looks so smooth that it's difficult to tell. So props to the person who did this shot for getting that to look so smooth to the point where I can't tell if it's CG or 2D. This shot here is kind of one that I more was like, okay, that's a little lackluster. This is more what I expected the movement to look like, was a little bit more stiff, a little bit less flexibility in the face and at certain joints like the neck, but they still play with it a little bit, and that right there is an insane level of effort. Having the hand move towards the camera like this, they basically put all of their effort and time. They were like, we don't need to worry about the head rotation and the shoulders kind of feeling natural. They wanted to get this hand going towards the camera to look as precise as they could. And I'm sure this is where the person who took this shot was spending all of their time, was just to make that look as good as it did. This isn't a big one, but I wanted to talk about this grass in the back and how the wind is kind of blowing through it and giving that wind-swept effect. This is most likely a 2D effect. This is probably just its own separate layer that they decided to animate and then plopped on top of the already rendered grass to be able to make it look like there's more grass in that lighter spot where there's no individual blades. This is something to do to sell volume a little bit more, especially in a place that is having things environmentally like wind, rain, etc. It just adds that thicker realism to the space, and it makes it feel more alive. This was just a great transition. There's not really much else to talk about there, but I like that they had him grabbing the paper, sitting down. It's just really smooth. I really appreciate that. This rotation on this character's hand, really, really well done. Again, for something that is 2.5D, This definitely is not a 3D model. This is all just individually drawn fingers. Odds are they're probably doing this in something like After Effects. I would be surprised if they were doing it in Flash, albeit you could. They could be doing this in Photoshop even. It's most likely After Effects. That's what I would do it in, but it's also possible they're doing it in something like DaVinci, which is what I use for editing these videos, albeit I'm not good at DaVinci like this. I'm not this good at DaVinci yet. And shots like this are what I mean by adding in CG in certain places, because that is definitely a CG tube that they just prettied up with some assets to make it look more like 2D. They put proper shaders on it. They added some elements in there that were 2D and just kind of let them go on the path. But that was definitely a CG path. If that was 2D entirely, I will eat my own glasses. That's gotta be a CG pipe that they just drug a camera through. That would make the most sense to me. This turn was also brilliant. This was so well done for 2D as well. The way that they had to perfectly place every single individual asset, the hand, the arm, and everything, and just skew it slightly into place. And this is a beautiful shot of that. You can really, really tell the amount of effort that the person who took this shot put in, and it looks gorgeous, even down to adding in motion blur on the gun. Really, really nice. And as anyone who's been here for longer than this video knows with my animation videos, I love impact frames, and this shot definitely gives us one. It has some great effects animation in general, but especially when this glass cracks. Oh, it's so good. They give you the anime stars. I love how that looks. It's so pretty. There's the real impact right there. Gorgeous impact, showing the entire space of the glass that was shattered, and then even continuing to show the character in the back with some of that glass and the overall shattering. Just beautiful, beautiful impact frames. Whoever did this sequence, gorgeous work all around. This is the 2D animation I was talking about here. Definitely 3D glass on this shot. They've just got some pieces flying through 3D space that they composited in, probably. I don't like marrying statements, but I'm going to marry that one. This one is just some really cool 2D effects animation. I've never been super strong on 2D effects animation, but I do definitely respect it, especially when it's done well. And these electrical little sparks all over the place look just so lively. The way that this is animated reminds me a lot of the animation Spirit Chaser by Karl Pajak, I believe his name is. Beautiful effects animation in that animation. It's got a lot of similar flair to the electrified energy of these little sparks that are happening. I know there's not really much to talk about on this shot so much. I just really like this cut of having them change from the regular models being shoved to just wooden placards that are just thrown on the floor. It's just a cool transition. There's not much animation-wise to say there. I just like how it looks. It was a very clever shot. And this is another great transition. I really wanted to talk about this shot because it's a cool transition. You're going from a 2D model to specifically a scene in 3D where everything is re-rendered in CG space, and you're having this character who is now a 3D model that is going to have the camera swoop around in 3D space. There's no mistaking this as a 3D model. And then you get there. What happened? Right as you go back here, that is a CG model. That is the 2D model. And it's a really good transition using this blur in front of it to switch between these shots and match them up in post to make it a seamless transition. Again, this is a timeless concept and a timeless effect that they use in film all the time, having some sort of obscurity in front of the character in order to change the scene if they're trying to fake a oneer. And if you don't know what a oneer is, it's just one singular shot that is done all at once, but they're usually faked by hiding cuts through stuff like this, having an obscurity go in front of the camera or otherwise obscure your vision from seeing where the cut would be it a corner of a building or a horse running by, could be anything. So using this to do so is really cool. And I didn't mention it during the reaction, but I did love this little sequence here because that snap, her going dark, but not entirely to black. They left the eye there for a second. They left her silhouette there for a second. Really cool visual. Very, very nice to see. This environment is hard to tell if it's 2D or CG as well. I want to believe that it's just a CG scene that has been painted up to look like the rest of the 2D aesthetic going on here, but it's legitimately difficult. I've seen some artists who are just this good to make things drawn in a skewed sort of perspective where it could make the entire room look like the camera is in it, and as it pulls back, look natural. But I'm going to lean towards the likelihood that this is a CG room that is textured and painted up to look like 2D, because it then, of course, transitions into this pipe here at the end, whatever this exit area is. It's some sort of window or corridor. You can definitely tell with how the thickness of everything is comparatively. It's a very, very good transition, and it is a lot of the time hard to tell, but these sorts of transitions do kind of waver on that edge a little bit where you can see it slightly better. But overall, my applause to the team that did this. There is some clear love and effort into making every single one of these transitions work, making all of these 2D pieces feel like they're in CG almost. There's a lot of love to a lot of these shots, and their sheer effort really paints a picture for how much they love what they were doing. So great job, team. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I definitely did not expect it to be 2.5D. I was definitely expecting a 3D CG thing, given what Genshin is mostly animated in. So I was kind of like, oh, finally, I get to flex my knowledge on that exact style of animation, and using symbols and 2D layers to make character animation happen is something I did for a couple years straight. So it's nice to finally get to flex those muscles for the first time in a while. But either way, if you like this video and you want to see more of them, by all means let me know, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!